Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 blown out of the sky over eastern Ukraine, 298 people killed. The entire international community in shock. Here's Jennifer Griffin with the latest.
Senior Western officials tell me they believe this video shows the actual SA-11 missile launcher used to bring down the Malaysian plane. It is missing 2 of its 4 missiles and shows the missile launcher heading toward the Russian border near Krasnodar at dawn yesterday. U.S. officials now believe they have pinpointed the launch site for the missile that brought down the plane inside Ukraine in the town of Snizhny. They say they believe the SA-11 Buk missile was brought across the border from Russia in recent weeks, and since the Malaysian plane went down, Russian-backed separatists have been frantically trying to hide it. U.S. officials now believe the launcher is likely back across the border in Russia. Further, U.S. intelligence analysts now think they have evidence that this former Russian military intelligence colonel, Igor Girkin-Strelkov, who is leading the separatist movement, oversaw the strike. Just 20 minutes after the plane went down, one of his lieutenants, Igor Bezler, is overheard talking to another Russian military intelligence officer in phone intercepts released by the Ukraine government. U.S. officials are conducting voice recognition and believe the audio to be authentic.
We have just shot down a plane. That was Miners Group. It fell down outside Anakieva.
Pilots. Where are the pilots?
Set off to search for the shot down plane and take pictures of it. A plume of smoke is visible.
How many minutes ago?
About 30 minutes ago.
That surface-to-air missile had to come from Russia. The training provided to operate that surface-to-air missile system most likely came from Russia.
That was U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel last night. As one well-placed Western intelligence source put it to me, we are building a case, and it's pretty near bulletproof at this point. Judge, back to you.
All right, Jen, thanks. And while the investigation into Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 continues, who is making sure authorities are handling it properly? With me, Fox News military analyst, Lieutenant General Tom McInerney. All right, good evening, General. You were one of the first responders and investigators when that Korean Airlines Flight 007 was shot down in '83 by the Soviet Union, killing hundreds, including 60 Americans. What should be happening now, and what should investigators be looking for?
Well, I think we ought to use the same methodology, and that means release all our intelligence. Judge, we know exactly what happened, or 99.99% of what happened. And so we need to feed that to the world so we can hold the Russians accountable. And clearly...
Excuse me, General, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
When you say that we're pretty sure we know what happened, and by that you mean either Russia providing that the SA-11 or training them, or talk to me.
Yes. We know it was a SA-11. It was a Russian missile. We know that it was probably integrated with the Russian integrated air defense sector, and so the search radar probably was being provided from Russia. And we have all this information. It's just that we have not yet released it. Like we in Cal 007, President Reagan authorized Secretary Shultz to release it at the UN Security Council when he released the tape that the pilot identified it as a civilian airliner, and yet he was given orders to shoot it down. We have this information. I don't believe it was on purpose. I believe they made a mistake. But the fact is, we know the exact position the missile came from. It was in separatist territory. It was probably a head-on shot, the way looking at the debris that you see. We know and you heard from the Ukraine transcripts, some of the transcripts that went on. There are more to that. And so all that information is being compiled right now, and it probably was, because I knew 2 hours after Cal 007 was shot down, I had a 98% picture of what had happened. So I know my counterparts in the Air Force today and U.S. Air Forces Europe, they know exactly what happened.
Okay, so assume we know exactly what happened. What are the sanctions? What happens now? What does the United States do? We lost at least one person that I know of right now. And what does the world do?
That is the $64 question. Well, here's my suggestion. Number one, we need to mobilize world leadership. That means lead, from in front, not from behind. Get the world behind us. Put the pressure on President Putin, because he is responsible for this. He trained, he provided all this to the separatists, if in fact they were separatists. They were probably Russian Spetsnaz troops that fired this, because it's too sophisticated for an ordinary separatist to know how to do it. And we need to put the pressure globally on President Putin, whether it's sanctions,
but
whether
you know,
it's a whole
General,
host of things.
And excuse me for interrupting you, but you know, every time President Obama gets up, he says there's going to be more costs, more sanctions, more deaths. I mean, none of this is deterring Putin. So, I mean, you look at the Netherlands, right? They lost, is it about 100 people on that plane? What can the Netherlands do? I guess the question is, how do we get Europe as a whole to say, you know what, enough? The annexed Crimea, this war is ridiculous. You know, we get the skies are not safe. I mean, who takes charge?
Well, that's the leadership role. We have a four-star general that's in charge of NATO, General Phil Breedlove. The president, NATO. We have representatives. The fact is we need to bring all nations together. Holland by itself, the Netherlands by itself, isn't going to do it.
All right,
if we don't all come together.
I got 15 seconds.
Got it.
Do Americans need to worry when they are flying overseas on an airplane? Are the skies safe?
You better worry, Judge. And don't fly airlines that go over these hostile areas.
How do we know that? I mean, how many Americans get on a plane and go to Europe thinking, oh, no problem, they've got my safety in mind? I mean, this is a war zone. Gotta go. They're telling me I gotta go. General, it's always good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Judge.
All right. And up next, the crisis in the Middle East intensifies tonight. Our very own John Huddy right there is in the middle of it. The very latest from Gaza. Next.
Jesus Christ.